we have a strong point of view that only certain algorithms should be allowed, then I think that should be added to the spec as well.
I think my biggest concern is, how does the spec and specifically implementers of the spec keep up with changes to that list that might be, definitely will change. We will, as an industry, take things off of that list and add new things. So I guess I'm trying to think through, like, how would we keep up with that as an implementer?
Right. Yeah, so I think this probably requires a bit more discussion. What's this? This requires a bit more discussion. We can probably talk about this a little bit more. I think like you mentioned, if I look at the list now, I think there's like 24 different algorithms, but right now we only support 2 of them. So that is definitely a very valid point that we have to address as well. Yeah, do you have any specific views on this?
No, I mean, I think that specifically with encryption ciphers, I actually think that individual implementers are going to be potentially more opinionated about which ones they believe are sufficient. And so, like, I'm just talking out loud here, trying to figure out, how a specific tool can sort of advertise what are the cipher options that it supports, and maybe it's okay that a particular implementation that doesn't support one of the ciphers simply can't pull down that image because it's encrypted with something it doesn't trust.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a good idea actually. Let me write that down. So a way to somehow broadcast what's implementation can support.
Yeah, it feels like a good, I know it's somewhat different, but it also kind of overlaps with the whole, I hate the word content trust, because content trust is not actually a content trust. It's like the whole idea that something can be signed regardless of where it came from has been a problem, and this would be a really good answer to that space.
Right. And this definitely also works hand in hand with Docker content trust and stuff like that. Okay. All right. So as an example over here, we can see that, I'm sorry, this window is getting in the way. We can see that we've implemented this in containerd, and so an example of what this would be in the encryption would be, we have a CTR images encrypt, and over here we show us supporting the different types of protocols. So we are able to specify a GPG home directory. We can say here are the recipients, and so the public keys will be obtained from the key ring. We also can specify by adding in the public keys that we want to create a JWE wrap key as well. And then if we put in certificates, we will be given a PKCS certificate as a wrap key. A PKCS-based wrap key. And what we implemented here is ability to see delay information about the encrypted image. So if we see this image, I don't know whether they can see this zoomed in. We can see over here that when we also have a list of key IDs, so for PGP, we can actually show the key IDs of the recipients of the image. For JWE and PKCS, this isn't very opaque usually. Okay. So just kind of a bit about why we went this route is because generally PGP, JWE, and PKCS, they are kind of the go-to ways in which we do encrypted messages. One thing to note that we do is we don't really use these protocols. We use these protocols in a way which some may find different. So these protocols generally have a header, and they have wrap keys, And this means these wrap keys are then decrypted to use this session key. Sorry, not session key. To use to decrypt some data. All right. The issue about doing this is that if we package this and say that these are the wrap keys and this is the data, what happens is these protocols don't allow you to introspect like which parts of whether this is data or this is the wrap key. It basically says I expect a packet and I'm going to decrypt this packet and give you the data. So what we've done here is instead we've said that the data of the PGP JWE or PKCS7 packet would be the layer cipher options itself. And then we use this layer cipher option to then decrypt the layer. So decryption process is kind of just the opposite. We take the private key, we unwrap the PGP or JWE key, we get the layer cipher options, and then we use the layer cipher options and the key in it to perform the decryption of the actual block. And so this is a diagram of how we see this being used in the image creation. So this would be either a user creating an image or some kind of DevOps pipeline. And once the image is created, it goes to an additional step of image encryption. So it obtains a public key from some key management service. This encrypted image is then, together with the wrap keys, is then uploaded to the registry. And when we launch the deployment, and the orchestration framework creates the workload, the key that's needed to decrypt the image can either be in the orchestration framework itself. So in Kubernetes, what we're doing is we are creating something called image decrypt secrets. So this is something which is very similar to image pool secrets that's used for registry credentials. But we're adding image decrypt secrets to be able to provide authorization of who can decrypt the secrets. And another way of doing this is to directly expose the key information to a runtime like containerd or Creo. Before I go ahead, any more questions?
I had a bit of one. I work on Kata containers, so it would be below containerd or Cryo at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
We've had discussions around kind of some of the, like PCI type of use cases where they actually don't want anything unencrypted on the host at all. I see you're kind of looking at supply chain and everything else of the image, but I'm wondering if I'm just because I just had some of these conversations, wondering, if this could be kind of go further and look at encrypting volumes as well. And then also looking at whether the decryption should be done inside of a sandbox. So that way the information isn't, the layers aren't available on the host.
Right,
itself.
I see what you mean. Is this somehow similar to the ultravisor work? I think there's a group that did something related to that with Kata containers. They talked about it in recent KubeCon. But yeah, so there definitely is the option to do that. We've had someone that looked into it, and the issue with that is that not all you would have to implement whatever we've implemented in containerd or Creo, and also have it be part of the container, the Kata container shim inside the VM. So yeah, let's discuss this offline, I guess. This is very specific use case.
Yeah, sure, cool.
Yeah,
thanks.
but yeah, maybe if you can ping me. I can't see who's talking on the screen, so if you could ping me later, I'd be happy to chat. All right. So just to recap a few things about the design that we have. So Because we're doing encryption on the layers, this means that we can have certain patterns. Like if I have an image where I have the Ubuntu and then I have some middleware like Node or Python, and have some secret data on top of it, I can still benefit from the deduplication of the larger portions of the image. Another thing that helps here is that because we are taking the wrap keys and keeping it separate from the actual encrypted blob itself, if we want to be able to create authorization for additional users to use the image, we don't have to re-upload an entire new image to the registry. One of the small caveats also because of encryption is that a lot of the scanning tools and scanning solutions now tend to go to the registry, download the image, and perform some analytics on it. So this is something that we've looked at also a little bit, but it's good because basically one solution that is possible is that on top of creating wrap keys for the recipients of the images, we can also create a wrap key for example, the vulnerability scanning service. So we can delegate trust in that way. So this is all I had for this short sharing. Here are a bunch of links. I think this was also in Phil's message to the group. But yeah, we are hoping to we're pretty excited about this work going forward. So if you have any questions or discussion points, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk about it.
All right, so maybe everyone's questions were handled in flight, but yeah, as Brandon said, if there's anything that should be feedback or other discussion points, there's obviously the issues sort of germane to this call would be the image spec pull request 775, which I put in the notes. Brandon, I assume this is shareable, like this presentation?
Yeah, I'll put the link to it in the HackMD notes.
Yeah, great. That's perfect. And there was a query in the chat about recording. I'm obviously a sometimes host because I couldn't get everything started the way it should have right at the start. So the recording starts about 10 minutes into Brandon's presentation. So for anyone listening to this, the presentation link in HackMD will give you the charts that we missed.
Also, maybe I'll put the link to the presentation we gave at DockerCon as well.
Sure. Yeah. That's good.
All right. Cool.
All right. So unless there's a late question or thought that just came up from anyone, it seems like we can move on to Josh and his 2 items.
Sure.
Sorry, my mouse disappeared, so someone has to kick me off screen sharing.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I got it. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You see my screen all right?
Yep.
Great. All right, let me zoom a little bit. So I sent an email regarding this to the list a few weeks back, the week of KubeCon. I had this idea of a registry just for little artifacts. So things like Helm charts, and I was working with Gareth Rusgrove on OPA, Open Policy Agent Bundles. But if you've been on this call over the last few months, you've no question heard Steve Lasker talk about this concept of putting new basically different artifact types besides container images in OCI registry. So right now this is just a read-only registry. It's at bundle.bar, and it provides support for Helm charts and OPA bundles, but I'm investigating different types of artifacts that we might use here, and I don't really see why it can't expand to all sorts of different things. Yeah, I think my next step with this is I'm gonna maybe open it up to logins and let people push these types of things. But right now it's a read-only, and I just wanted to share it. And since there's nothing else on the agenda, just kind of get some feedback on people's thoughts on something like this. But that's really all I have.
Yeah, no, I saw the note, and it definitely seems like an interesting topic. Of course, it was KubeCon week, so it may have gotten lost in the noise. So,
yeah, definitely.
Anyone else have comments, thoughts, questions for Josh on this particular topic?
Have you seen other, I'm curious what other artifact types you've seen or what?
And like Phil was saying, like it was KubeCon week when I put this out, so people were, busy with all sorts of things. But I'm following closely the CNAB conversations, and I think that would be, and obviously the name bundle bar references, the possibility of cloud native application bundles. So that's sort of the next thing. I'm following that conversation closely and trying to keep on top of that, and I think that would be a great next thing for this. But yeah, I think I like the idea of just like, a registry for a specific purpose, because Azure Container Registry, you can put anything in there, right? It's just a general purpose registry. Docker Hub, it's for Docker images. But what about something just for configuration type stuff? So haven't got a whole lot of feedback, which is why I'm on the call here talking about it. But it does actually bring me into my next thing that I put on the doc, which is I was setting this up, and all I'm doing is I'm just running a Docker distribution with it's backed by like an Azure storage container. And I was just kind of trying to figure out how I could only host these two types of artifacts. And I don't see anything in Docker distribution that allows you to do so. So I opened this issue, and I actually did a full PR with unit tests and everything. I don't know if there's anyone from the distribution project on the call right now, but yeah, like if I only wanted to store bananas and oranges in my registry, like there's not really a way, I couldn't find any way from a configuration perspective to do so. So I know AWS's registry returns a 403 on this type of thing, and I'm just curious how people are doing that. Is it like a middleware option or a shim?
Claire, are you still on the call?
Yep, I'm here.
You probably could comment more deeply than I. I mean, it seems like each of us have implemented various filters that just are in the open of the spec because we wanted to be a little more limited. It has been the topic of things that have come up in the artifact stuff is how do we, Jimmy and I have been talking in the call about should it be open by default, closed by default. There's a good conversation to be had here. And then,
Yeah, we have our own filters.
But I guess, is that done with like a middleware? Like do you know how you're doing that?
Middleware on top of what?
So I'm assuming, I guess I'm making the assumption that you're running distribution server, but that could be false.
Correct. Yeah, we have our own implementation.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Because yeah, if you run distribution or Docker registry like out of the box, it accepts everything. So that's where I was just kind of like, I knew that registries were whitelisting, but I just didn't know how they were doing it.
Yeah, so it does. There, there's a bunch of details there that we all implement. Like obviously, we have our own storage implementations, we have our own authentication, and there's a whole bunch of optimizations that each of us do. And that's one of the things that's good about distribution is it has, for the most part, listing API aside, has a really good common API that we can all implement. That the Docker client and others know how to work with it perfectly fine. But the implementation details we can do uniquely and even provide some added values per registry, per cloud. And this is part of that openness of the implementation. I don't know, Claire, whether you actually just take the upstream and add code to it, and then you're doing the constant merge. That's basically what we do, so that we can pull things from upstream, and then we have all of our unique sauce that we pour into it as well. I wouldn't officially call it middleware per se. It's not that formalized. It's more just here's our code that is unique to ACR and Claire, and Claire from AWS is supposed to Claire the other. Well, Claire's a scanner, different things. Anyway, or Quay or GCR does. So take the next level of details for the artifact stuff is how would a registry have a way to turn it on, turn it off, which I'm not sure is that all that interesting for us to worry about. But what's really interesting is, well, how do I find out what a registry supports? So the vulnerability scanner so the vulnerability scanners that need to know, how do I scan a Helm chart? How do I scan an OPA? How do I scan an image that's got encrypted layers, right? Because they do need to be able to pull them. Those are all things that I think will be really interesting on the public API of distribution, to know how do they interact with these things generically.
Yeah, and that actually, it's kind of a sidebar, but it makes me interested in the Harbor project. So the Harbor project, basically, they added support for Helm charts and like put a chart museum behind Harbor, but Harbor just talks back to distribution. So I actually opened this issue as well, and I think it'd be cool if, like, I don't know, like the support for like how do you scan a chart, or how do you scan a certain artifact type, plus what is the media types associated with it. I don't know if you could somehow run a Harbor or a distribution that's just for the purpose of Helm, so we can, when Helm 3 comes out, we can tell users, hey, here's your in-place replacement for charges. Run this server with a certain configuration, and that's your registry just for Helm. And of course, like things like Azure, like it'll allow you to do both. But I don't know. I'm kind of just exploring at this point. But that's sort of all I have for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh, for putting that together. I'm taking a look at the PR you
Sure.
did.
Yeah.
It seems to be fairly well written and all that. We just haven't had any chance to get some comments on it. I'll talk to Derek and see if we can't
get thank you
some thoughts on it.
Yeah, in fact, it wouldn't be that bad to ping Derek. He's working from China through KubeCon China at the end of the month, so he's obviously not able to be on this call time-wise, but yeah, like Mike said, I'm sure he'd be happy to give some comments when he has some time.
I'll give it a review too.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I feel like this is a sort of Wild West topic right now, and just trying to figure out what's the way to go about it.
Yep, that's good stuff. And I did not add any notes for your two topics there. So if there's anything worth tossing in the HackMD, you do have your links in the agenda.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, and I will figure out what it means to post the recording of whatever I got from today's call as well. So we'll have that too. So we're pretty early. Usually we've taken up the whole hour. So is there anything else from folks that are on that have interest in discussion or something we didn't cover that folks would like to chat about? Well, I'll take deafening silence that everyone's satisfied with what we chatted about. So I will, like I said, I will figure out a way to get this recording somewhere. I don't know if we've recorded anything since we moved to Zoom, but we'll figure that out and get it somewhere. And like I said, in Slack and somewhere else, I will update the couple places that this meeting is referenced to make sure people have an easier time figuring out where to join. Other than that, I think we're set for today, and talk to everyone in a week. And
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Mike.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.